In 2026, Iran is at war. What the White House initially described as a series of surgical strikes has become something far darker, a full-scale regional war with no clear end in sight. President Trump called it a final necessity to stop a nuclear-armed Iran. But here is the bitter irony that almost nobody is talking about. The very facilities now being targeted by the Pentagon were built on a foundation laid by the United States itself. So who gave Iran nuclear technology in the first place? The answer is America. Today we are going on a journey, from the 1950s all the way to the 2026 war, to understand how the United States helped create the very nuclear threat it is now trying to destroy. This is the full story of Iran's nuclear program, and trust me, it is stranger than fiction. Our story begins in 1953 with one of the most ambitious and, in hindsight, one of the most consequential foreign policy initiatives in American history: President Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program. The Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union was in full swing. Washington had a simple calculation. If it could spread civilian nuclear technology to friendly nations, those countries would have less reason to develop nuclear weapons secretly, and the world would be safer. It seemed logical at the time. Iran, then ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza of the Pahlavi dynasty, a staunch Western ally, was one of the first recipients. The U.S. provided Iran with its first nuclear research reactor and, critically, supplied it with highly enriched uranium to fuel it. Then in the 1970s, the West doubled down. Germany's Siemens began constructing 2 full-scale power reactors at a site called Bushehr on Iran's southwestern coast. France's Framatome signed contracts to build 2 more at Darkovan, near the Iraqi border. Meanwhile, MIT, one of the world's leading institutions in science and technology, was training some of Iran's first generation of nuclear engineers through a dedicated master's degree program. It was America which trained Iran's nuclear scientists and built Iran's first reactor. The West handed Iran the keys to nuclear capability because back then, Iran was an ally. Then fast forward to 1979. The Iranian Revolution swept away the Shah and replaced the monarchy with a theocratic Islamic republic led by Shia cleric Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Almost overnight, one of America's closest Middle Eastern allies became one of its bitterest enemies. The new regime initially suspended nuclear development, viewing it as a corrupt remnant of foreign meddling. But that restraint would not last long, and the West itself would inadvertently push Iran back toward a nuclear program. In 1980, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, sensing vulnerability in the newly born Islamic Republic, launched a full-scale invasion of Iran. The Reagan administration, eager to weaken Khomeini's government, backed Saddam Hussein with weapons, intelligence, and financial support. Even when Iraqi forces deployed chemical weapons against Iranian soldiers, a war crime, the international response amounted to little more than strongly worded statements and investigation teams from the United Nations. For Iranian leaders, the message was unmistakable. The international community would not protect them. If they wanted to survive in a hostile world, they needed a deterrent of their own. And so, Iran quietly made the decision to restart its nuclear program. This time, not for peaceful purposes. Shut out by the West, Iran turned east. In 1985, Iran and China signed a nuclear cooperation agreement covering research, training, and technology transfers. 2 years later, Iran forged a deal with Pakistan, specifically through Abdul Qadir Khan, the so-called father of Pakistan's nuclear bomb. The scientist ran a clandestine nuclear proliferation network that supplied Iran with centrifuge designs, critical components, and the technical know-how needed to enrich uranium. This was the missing piece Iran had been searching for. Around the same time, cooperation with North Korea began, primarily focused on missile technology, the delivery systems that could one day carry a nuclear payload. And by 1995, Russia stepped in to finish what Germany had started, resuming construction on the long-stalled Bushehr reactor that Siemens had abandoned after 1979. Iran was quietly assembling a full nuclear supply chain, from enrichment to weaponization to delivery, sourced from 4 different countries, below the radar of Western intelligence. And then, in 2002, the secret came out. An Iranian opposition group called the Mojahedin-e-Khalq, or MEK, publicly revealed the existence of 2 hidden nuclear facilities in central Iran, an underground uranium enrichment plant at Natanz, and a heavy water reactor at Arak. These were not civilian energy projects. These were hardened, secret facilities on a potential path to nuclear weapons. The world had no choice but to react. Between 2003 and 2005, Europe stepped in. France, Germany, and the UK, the so-called EU3, negotiated a temporary suspension of Iranian enrichment. For a brief moment, diplomacy seemed to be working. Then Iran elected hardliner Mahmoud Ahmadinejad as president in 2005, and the thaw ended. Iran resumed enrichment, and the UN Security Council responded with 5 waves of escalating sanctions between 2006 and 2010. But sanctions alone were not enough. So more aggressive measures were taken. In 2010, the Stuxnet computer worm, a covert joint US-Israeli cyber weapon, had physically destroyed approximately 1,000 Iranian centrifuges by making them spin out of control. It was the first known cyber attack to cause real-world physical destruction. Simultaneously, a wave of assassinations targeting Iranian nuclear scientists began on the streets of Tehran, widely attributed to Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency. By 2012, international pressure was taking a serious economic toll. An EU oil embargo and banking sanctions caused the rial, the Iranian currency, to lose 80% of its value. That economic pain brought moderate President Hassan Rouhani to power in 2013, with a mandate to negotiate. The result was the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA. Under this deal, Iran agreed to cut its centrifuges by 2/3, cap enrichment at 3.67%, and reduce its uranium stockpile by 97%. In exchange, international sanctions were lifted. It was a landmark diplomatic achievement. The peace did not last. In 2018, during his first term, President Trump withdrew the United States from the JCPOA, arguing that the deal only delayed Iran's nuclear weapons program rather than permanently ending it. He launched a campaign of maximum pressure, reimposing and expanding sweeping economic sanctions. Iran's response was predictable. By 2019, it was systematically violating JCPOA limits, exceeding its uranium stockpile cap, enriching beyond 3.67%, and reactivating advanced centrifuges. By 2021, Iran was enriching uranium to 60% purity, a level with no credible civilian justification. For context, weapons-grade uranium is enriched to 90%. Iran was no longer hiding what direction it was heading. In January 2020, the U.S. assassinated General Qasem Soleimani, the powerful commander of Iran's elite Quds force, in a drone strike in Baghdad. Iran retaliated with missile strikes on U.S. military bases in Iraq. Later that year, Iran's chief nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was killed in a sophisticated assassination attributed to Israel. Then in 2024, the shadow war finally broke into the open. Iran and Israel exchanged direct missile and drone strikes multiple times, in April, July, and October, marking the most serious direct confrontation between the two countries in history. This escalation was partly fueled by the broader regional spillover from Israel's war in Gaza following Hamas's attack in 2023. Which brings us to today. In June 2025, under Trump's second term, U.S. forces conducted strikes directly targeting Iran's nuclear facilities. And since late February 2026, a full-scale military confrontation has been underway. Thousands of missiles have been launched. Hundreds of airstrikes have been carried out. Supreme Leader Khamenei is reported dead. The Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 1/5 of the world's oil flows, has been blockaded. And yet, destroying Iran's nuclear program has proven far harder than anyone anticipated. The most critical facilities are deeply buried underground and widely dispersed across the country, specifically designed to survive a military attack. The bitter, almost tragic irony of all this? The roots of Iran's nuclear engineering knowledge, at least in part, trace back to the Atoms for Peace program, to the reactors America built and the engineers America trained decades ago. So what is the lesson here? Foreign policy decisions rarely play out the way their architects intend. The United States shared nuclear technology with Iran to build a Cold War alliance. It backed Saddam Hussein in the Iran-Iraq War. It withdrew from the JCPOA to apply pressure on Iran. At each step, the short-term logic seemed sound, and at each step, the long-term consequences were catastrophic. Now, America finds itself at war, partly against a nuclear threat it helped create. History does not repeat itself, but it does have a very dark sense of irony. We actually released a video on this topic earlier. You can find the link in the description box. And if this video helped you make sense of one of the most dramatic geopolitical stories of our time, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss an update. What do you think about Trump's real agenda in this ongoing conflict? Is this about stopping the nuclear threat, controlling oil supply, reshaping the Middle East, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know. Thank you for listening. Bye!